Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to this Quickfire presentation. Before we launch into our presentation, a disclaimer from Tile Council of North America. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I will point out the highlights that this presentation is copyrighted by TCNA and may not in whole or in part be copied, distributed, published, displayed, or used for any other purposes without the permission of TCNA. TCNA gives permission. If you're interested, in certain cases, if you're interested, just visit our website, tcnatile.com. And also, this presentation may include information from third parties beyond the control of TCNA. And lastly, just a statement that this material is not an endorsement, recommendation, approval, certification, or criticism by TCNA of any particular product, method, or application. Okay, so going to the session description and learning objectives. In this presentation, we are going to look at why ceramic tile stands out when we are designing for occupant safety. We will discuss topics such as flame spread, smoke development, toxicity, slipperiness, and mold. These stand out because they are more on the health aspects of the designing. So we will learn a little about all these aspects and also why ceramic tile is better choice. Okay, going to our objectives of this Quickfire presentation, we will review health and safety aspects of floor coverings for mold, flame spread, smoke, toxicity, and slipperiness. So the first topic we are going to look at is mold. What is mold? Mold is a plant-like growth that is seen everywhere. There are 5 kingdoms of naturally occurring things like animal kingdom, plant kingdom. Mold is one of them, and they are simple plant-like organisms. They exist everywhere in nature. In a study, there were about 1,000 species found in North American households. Fortunately, ceramic tile does not support mold growth. But where does mold grow? That's a question. So to survive, to proliferate, to propagate, mold needs moisture. Number one, moisture and some sort of a substrate so it can eat on and grow, and ambient temperature. Usually the temperatures between 20 to 40 are when mold grows happily. Right? It does not mean that you see mold and it means that it is a health hazard. It is not so. There are many mold out there that are used for positive purposes, such as blue cheese. The blue veins you see in blue cheese is a fungus, a mold growth. But sometimes in buildings, in dwellings, if you let mold grow and proliferate, they lead to formation of cell debris, spores, which can lead to health hazards. We will have a look at that. There's some examples of how mold looks when it starts growing. Mold is not related to hygiene. It's not. You can be clean, but still you would see mold growing. We'll touch on those topics of how and when and where mold grows. But there are some examples. This picture here is of mold growing on the underside of a carpet. That's an extreme case of mold spots on the roof. Sorry. So why and when does mold grow? So mold needs, like I said, moisture and a food source to grow, and that's how it. What you're seeing is visible growth, but studies have shown that mold growth is like icebergs, you see the tip, you can only see the tip. But what you cannot see is a whole lot more, which is more concerning. So dampness and moisture, these two, dampness is required for mold to grow. That's how it starts. Anytime a building shows dampness, there's a WHO study which says that if there is dampness, then you can expect respiratory allergies or ailments from building occupants. So what can be the possible causes of entry of moisture or dampness? There are many. There's leaks, plumbing leaks, HVAC system malfunction, sprinkler activation, condensation, or in general, as the building ages, moisture gets absorbed into the buildings. Food. Now this is where it is. Some materials are obvious food sources for the fungi, like paper or cloth, fabric. They're carbohydrates, so mold or fungi can simply grow on it. But sometimes in some of the building materials don't have these, but mold is a saprobophobe. What it means is mold can live off of dead materials or organic materials such as adhesives or any other organic compounds that are used in manufacturing of flooring. Mold can live off of those. So let's talk about why mold is bad. So mold can be bad because when mold grows, like I said, it's going to grow by utilizing whatever is around it, by eating it. So there's going to be a degradation. As mold grows, you would see degradation, decay, rotting, discoloration, and definitely unpleasant odors resulting from all that fungi is working on. So those are the minor issues that might result from mold, which is structural damage to a building, but the more serious are the major health concerns. Now, like I said, WHO report, there is non-visible mold growth underneath the flooring which you cannot see. During inspections, what is reported is only the visible mold growth, but what you don't see, the non-visible mold growth, is more dangerous because it's been growing and we haven't seen it, so we don't treat it. Now once mold starts growing, it will release spores, cell debris, dead matter, which can get trapped in the cracks and crevices, and then when you walk, they're released into the air. The spores are known allergens. They cause bad allergies. Like the minor of those are respiratory allergic effects are commonly seen with spores. There was once a study which linked hemorrhaging in infants and babies to mold presence in the buildings in Cleveland. It took them 4 years to figure out what was happening, but they did find it. So, like I said, spores are from non-visible growth, mold growth. When you walk, there are studies which quantify how much of spores release when you walk, as simple as walking. And some mold are known to release toxic substances called mycotoxins. These are not emissions gaseous, nor are they big as spores, but they're toxic substances which enter your lungs and into your system, and then you start seeing more health effects. Those are the symptoms you would see from mycotoxin exposure: rashes, hives, joint pain, depression, and chronic fatigue. Okay. Mold growth in buildings. When mold starts eating up all the organic matter in the adhesives, for example, it releases volatile organic compounds. These are gaseous compounds that are released into indoor air quality. These VOCs are known to cause what is called the sick building syndrome. For people who are occupying that building, they constantly feel sick. There is no way to diagnose what that is, but you do feel the fatigue, the depression, that sort of thing. Now, some of the plastic-based flooring materials, they have phthalates in them. Studies have shown that fungi mold grows on the plastic-based materials and releases these plasticizers into the air. The phthalates are now determined as one of the leading causes to cause obesity in children and also reproductive disorders. There are lab tests conducted on rats which have showed that male rats lose their reproductive capability when exposed to phthalates. So we come to the part where why tile is a better choice with regards to mold. Tile is inert. It's made of inorganic compounds. There is nothing on it that mold could use to eat and grow. Tile is inert, so no food source for mold to grow. And tile does not retain water. There is no way tile can get into water, moisture can get inside of tile, and mold would use that to grow. There is current ongoing research at TCNA on different plastic-based materials, flooring materials. You can see here that moisture goes into the plastic-based material flooring, and those spots are mold growing. Mold can, as soon as moisture penetrates into the flooring, mold can start growing within 1 day. That growth is after 28 days only. And it's not visible. This is the top surface, those are the sides. Imagine how much would have to start growing and for you to see. So this is just 28 days of growth. Okay, again, why tile? Tile is inorganic, so if there's nothing for mold to work on or degrade or decay or rot. So that's why tile, better option for against mold. Okay. All the information I gave you is information gathered from various studies. Those are the references I used. If you want a copy, please, I can give you a copy of those references. Okay, moving on to flame spread and smoke toxicity. So, ceramic tile is non-flammable. There is really not much I can talk about flame spread or smoke toxicity because ceramic tile is not flammable. So it's not going to support flame spread at all. So we get inherent conformance to the standards of International Building Code for interior walls and ceiling materials. Any other flooring or wall covering needs to show testing that there is no flame spread or there is reduced flame spread. Ceramic tile does not burn, so we get automatic inclusion into this. We get exempted. The same with smoke toxicity. Tile is non-flammable. So there is no production of toxins via smoke. In fact, all those other floorings that have to test for toxin release during flame, the chamber is made of ceramic tile. So there's nothing, like I said, there's nothing to talk about smoke from ceramic tile. But what is to be noted is that simple accidents cause release of toxins from materials. Now, it can be as simple as kitchen accidents, grease fire, your hair straightener falling onto a plastic-based material flooring. We have just started research on plastic-based materials at TCNA, and it has shown that just warming those floorings, we can sense the release of these compounds, chlorinated gas toxin compounds, to the extent that we just warmed up the material and we had to evacuate the lab because the smell was unbearable. This is just very initial research. We are still trying to see how to show that these tile is a better option when considering flame spread and smoke toxicity. Moving on, we'll talk about slipperiness. My colleague Davidson would do that.
Thanks, Jyothi. Is this on? All right. So now we're looking at the aspect of slipperiness, or as you probably have heard it referred to, slip resistance. And what I'll kind of do is similar to how Jyothi did it. I'll give you a little bit of background, and then we'll go into why ceramic tile is a great option. So you're all probably familiar with the word slipperiness, but when we're talking about it as it pertains to flooring, we're really thinking about the traction and the frictional resistance of the flooring. And there's a bunch of different factors to consider. Among the ones that actually pertain to the floor covering itself are the dynamic coefficient of friction, also called the decoff, how many grout joints that product has, does it have profound surface texture or surface roughness, does it have opportunities for drainage, and those are just some of the few ones that pertain to floor coverings itself, but other important factors include like the type of contaminant if you're walking upon it when wet. So soda or water, those will all have an effect on the slip resistance, especially for wet surfaces, even the type of material of the shoe that you're wearing or if you're barefoot. So continuing on, the decoff that I mentioned just not long ago, a little bit more background on that. It's actually a measure of the surface's frictional resistance. And this is really important because it's actually a quantifiable number that you can measure, and it can be used as a great indicator of a floor's slip resistance among those other factors that I mentioned, such as drainage and surface roughness and the other ones. And it's important for manufacturers because it can be used for quality control, and then if they report it, specifiers can actually go back, look at that, and they can use that as sort of a gauge for, can this surface be used in a wet application, taking into account those other factors. So the way that we measure for a decoff value is actually using a device called a tribometer, and there are various different types. At TCNA, we actually use a tribometer that is a drag sled type. So what it does is there's a rubber sensor underneath here, and you'll wet the surface path, or you can run it dry as well if you want dry decoff value. And it'll run across, and it'll take lots of different data points, and it'll average those together, and it'll give you a number. So that is the most common way to find the decoff of a flooring material. And as I mentioned, using that type of tribometer at TCNA, we've actually done some initial research. And please note that these are just preliminary findings, but what we're working on is looking at all different kinds of flooring materials. So take this as an example. So ceramic tile, what we see is manufacturers, for the most part, will report their wet decoff value. They'll send it to labs and get it tested. Plastic-based material flooring, of the products that we have tested, will not report or make mention of a wet dynamic coefficient of friction value. Ceramic tile has grout joints. That's another factor that can greatly increase the slip resistance of a surface. And also you have the varying surface texture and finishes. And this is in contrast to plastic base, where we have found on the products we've tested, the wet decoff values are often very low. The products don't have grout, so there's no grout joints. And so kind of bringing this full circle, you look at, how these products are advertised and how they're finished and their decoff values. And ceramic tile is a great option because of those wide range of options, because of the varying finishes. There's grout joints. The system is completely waterproof after you've installed it, and you also have exterior applications. So overall, all of these factors and just the ability of manufacturers to really get creative with what they can do all add up to why tile is the best option if you're looking for slip-resistant surfaces. So that does it for this Quickfire presentation. Please complete the session evaluation. Give us some good feedback. Here's our information. Are there any questions that anyone has?
Do you have a question?
So when it comes to mold,
Okay.
are there key signs that someone should look for in the mold?
See, it's always the visible growth that shows up, but as far as health goes, if you are constantly get allergic reactions, respiratory disorders, when you're at home, don't observe it outside. Yes, there may be some mold contamination, for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.